Today, I'm going to show you how I make my plant-based gumbo. It's so delicious. I don't include vegan sausage in mine because of the added fat and oils, but my son loves adding vegan sausage to it. The most important thing with your gumbo is the roux. And the way I make my roux is a dry roux, which only includes flour, and I do it in the oven. I put this here to show you what the roux will look like when it's finished. So this is my whole wheat flour before I make my roux, and this is what it's going to look like afterwards. Next we have onions, bell pepper, celery, carrots, and garlic. We also have mushrooms, cauliflower, and the star of the show, okra. And finally we have onion powder, garlic powder, smoked paprika, cayenne pepper, sage, poultry seasoning. This is the gumbo filet. I have this in a different dish because it goes in later. Bay leaves, better than Bouillon Veggie Base, and a gallon of water. Let's get started. All right, the first thing we need to do is get started with the roux. But first I want to show you this. If you don't want to make the roux homemade, you can always use this instant roux by Tony Chachere's. It does the job. It just doesn't use whole wheat flour like I do. But if you want to make the process a little bit easier, this will work just fine. So what I'm going to do to make my roux, I'm going to put my flour in my skillet, and this is a heavy bottom skillet that can also go in the oven. Then I'm going to spread that around so that it can touch all of the surface area of the skillet, and it will go in the oven on 400, and I'll do it, leave it in there for about 15 minutes, take it out, stir it, another 15 minutes or so, and then we'll see how this turns out. Usually roux takes about maybe an hour, sometimes an hour and 15 minutes or so to cook, but I'm only cooking a cup right now, so it may not take that long. So let me get this in the oven. All right, it's been going for 15 minutes. I just took it out the oven. Make sure you have some kind of mitt. See the one I have? If you're gonna hold the handle, because this will be hot and we'll be doing this a lot. What I'm doing right now is I'm stirring it around. I can tell the difference in the color just slightly. You're not going to see a marked difference for a few rounds. So then I'll spread it back down and put it back in the oven for the next 15 minutes. All right, this is what it looks like after the second round. And it looks like it's almost done. Actually, I think it just needs one more round and it will be finished. Usually it takes me about an hour, maybe an hour and a half to get my roux the color that I want it, but I usually make about 3 cups of roux so I can keep some in the refrigerator. This time I only made 1 for this demonstration, and look at this color. It is already getting brown. I think one more round of 15 minutes is going to do it. So let's put this back in the oven, and I would suggest that you turn on the fan above your stove because this last round, it is going to start to smoke a little bit. All right, it is almost finished. It's been going for 10 minutes. Gonna stir this around again. Make sure that everything that was touching the bottom of the skillet has been redistributed. And I think we may just need another 10 minutes and we'll be finished. I'll be right back. All right, it's still not quite ready. You see the color? We want this to get a little bit darker because when it has a nice rich color, that's where you have that roux flavor that just comes out so nicely and gives you that Louisiana taste. So I'm going to put this back in the oven for 10 more minutes. And this might seem like an arduous task to stir it every 10 minutes, but it's important to do that because you don't want it to burn. All right, we're still not quite there yet. I'm going to go in and stir it around again. And same thing. We'll put it back in the oven and we'll do it for another 10 minutes. All right, here's the finished roux. Look at that color. I actually did it about 3 rounds, but I didn't take it out and stir it and show it, but I'll tell you the exact amount of time that it spent in the oven in the description below. But now it is ready. It's a nice dark color, not quite as dark as chocolate, but it's a good rich brown. The roux is ready, so let's get started with the gumbo. As usual, I start off with my Mirepoix, which is going to consist of onions, bell pepper, celery, and I'm also going to add in some carrots for color. And this is going to cook for about 10 minutes. And while I cook the Mirepoix, I continuously stir it. So this is not something that I leave the stove for at all. You want to continue to agitate this around. And I started off on a high fire so that it can all start to sizzle. Now I'm putting it down to like a medium. And this is going to go for about 10 minutes. Okay, it's been going for about 5 minutes, but it's starting to stick a little bit at the bottom because remember I'm sauteing this without oil. So I'm just going to put a little, listen, hear that? Just put a little bit of water and that just loosens it right on up. I'm going to do this for about another 5 minutes. All right, it's been going for about 10 minutes. And I'm going to add a little bit more water because it's starting to stick again. But just a little bit of water takes care of it. And it loosens it right on up there. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is add in the garlic. And remember, we put the garlic in for only about 1 minute because we want it to get a little bit toasted there, but not to burn. And garlic's one of those things that will go from 0 to 10 really, really quickly. All right. Let's stir that around. And I'll be right back. Okay, so now I'm going to add in about a half a cup of water before I put in the seasonings. And typically when I make my gumbo, I make it in a big pot. It's like a gumbo pot. This is a big pot too, but it's a wide one because I wanted you all to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to put in a half a cup of water. Very nice. And now I'm going to add in my seasonings. First thing I want to add is my Better Than Bouillon. So one thing I want you to know about this, if you have your own veggie stock, then you don't necessarily need the Better Than Bouillon, because if you use veggie stock instead of water, then that will be the same thing as using water in the Better Than Bouillon veggie base. I just like the Better Than Bouillon's flavor when I make gumbo and some of my other dishes as well. Okay, so I have the Better Than Bouillon in there. And now let's add in the seasonings. I'm putting in all the seasonings except the bay leaves and the gumbo filet. Gumbo filet is one of those things that you want to put in just before you're ready to turn the fire off, let it sit for a minute, and then prepare to serve it. That's not something that you want to put in at the beginning of the process. So I'm going to stir this around a little bit more. The reasoning for saving the gumbo filet at the end, I'm really not sure. This is just what Mama's always done, what I've always done. And so that's what I'm going to do in this video. All right, so I'm going to let that cook just for about a minute, and then I'm going to add in the water. Okay, now it's time to add in the liquid. So I'm going to pour that in. About a gallon. And I'm going to let this, I'm turning it back up to high now because I want this to come to a little bit of a boil before I go to the next step. Okay, the next step while I'm waiting for this to boil is to whisk the roux in some water. So I have the roux right here. I'm going to take 1/3 cup of that, more or less, and then I'm going to add that to my water. And I'm going to whisk it until it's smooth. All right, this is what the roux looks like once it's been whisked together. And you want to make sure that you whisk it well. I'm going to pour it in here. You see that color? Nice deep brown. All right, now the wait time begins because it's going to cook for about maybe 30 minutes or so before I put in, oh no, I have to go on and put in the okra now, but everything else can wait. So this is the base of the gumbo. Let this cook for maybe about 5 minutes, and then I'll add in the okra. Okay, it's been 5 minutes. Here goes the okra. Now it's going to cook for about 30 minutes. And I'll stir periodically. And then at the end of 30 minutes, I'll also taste to see how the seasonings are. But we are almost ready for some gumbo. All right, look at it go. It's been going for about 25 minutes. Now I'm going to add in the mushrooms, and I'll let those cook for about 10 minutes before I put in the cauliflower. And the cauliflower just adds another chew, another bite for you. And then once the cauliflower has cooked for about 5 to 10 minutes, it is finished. Look at the color of that gravy in this gumbo. So this is more like a water gumbo. It just doesn't have all of the animal products like you're used to. And but the flavor is going to be wonderful. So I'm going to put the top on it for just kind of cracked, just a little bit like that. And it's still on a medium low, and I'll be back in about 10 minutes. I totally forgot to add in my bay leaves, so I'm going to put those in now. It would have been nice to have put in my bay leaves right around the time that I put in my okra. So it'll be fine though. I'm going to go on and stir those in, because bay leaves give it such a lovely flavor. All right, put the top back on. Got about 5 more minutes before I add in the cauliflower. Okay, I can't tell you how good it smells in here. I'm going to sprinkle the filet, and then I'm going to stir that up a little bit first so that pieces of that don't get all over the cauliflower. There we go. Now I'm going to add in the cauliflower. And this will be finished in about 10 minutes. Oh yeah. Oh, smells so good. I'll be right back. All right. It is all ready. Just made some rice. And if you like it with hot sauce also gives it a really nice flavor, unless you don't want too much heat. But here we have it. Plant-based gumbo. Enjoy.